We're going to return to events in the Middle East, the UN's children's agency. UNICEF says at least 322 children are reported to have been killed in the 2 weeks since Israel's bombardment resumed in Gaza. They estimate that more than 600 have been wounded. Meanwhile, the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs said they've received no response from Israel to their requests for information on the attack that killed 15 aid workers in Gaza. The UN says 8 Palestinian Red CR medical workers, 1 UN staff member, and 6 civil defense workers were killed. 5 ambulances, a fire truck, and a UN vehicle were hit one by one in the ALH Hashashin area on March 23rd. I've been speaking to our Middle East correspondent Dan Johnson in Jerusalem, and I asked him what justification Israel is giving for targeting a humanitarian convoy. Israel's version of this incident is that it was opening fire on Hamas fighters, that it was targeting somebody in amongst those vehicles, who it believed had been part of the October the 7th attacks on Israel. It says that it killed a Hamas figure as part of this incident. But we don't know where his body is if that is true. His body is not amongst those that have been recovered the last 48 hours by the UN and other international organizations. The Red Crescent and others who were involved in this, who had medics and rescue teams caught up in this. We don't know if his body was taken by the IDF and is perhaps being held. The Israeli military's justification for this attack is that they were taking out what they describe as a terrorist, and that the medics who were caught up in this were just inadvertently in the way. But Israel is being accused once again of being careless with the lives of innocent Palestinians indeed. Palestinian response emergency workers who should have had the protections of international law and the Geneva Conventions. Although we understand they had not pre-cleared their access to that area, they were responding to reports of firing and injuries in that area close to Rafah. But they weren't able to guarantee safe passage with the Israelis when their ambulances and fire truck came under fire. It's taken a long time for the details of this incident to come out more than a week before their bodies were found, buried in sand, and the international organizations involved are saying that the fact that their vehicles and bodies were dug into the sand, were buried, is part of Israel's attempt to cover up exactly what has happened here. There are CS for an investigation that the Israeli authorities haven't even guaranteed that that will take place yet. But they have said they didn't just randomly open fire on ambulances and emergency teams. They say that those vehicles were moving suspiciously, that they didn't have their headlights or emergency lights illuminated, and that it perhaps wasn't clear to the soldiers exactly what vehicles they were opening fire on. The international agencies are saying that those vehicles were clearly marked, and it should have been obvious to the soldiers that they were not part of this conflict.